Alright, I am back with another Destiny video. This is obviously not how I wanted to go back to making daily Destiny videos, but here we are in the midst of probably the worst situation I have ever seen with the game, and one that is not based on actually the quality of the game at all in this current season, which I still maintain is probably one of the best seasons they've done in terms of story, execution, missions, stuff like that. But obviously we are talking about not just the layoffs at Bungie, but the reason for the layoffs, which has come to light, and that is a dramatic underperformance of Destiny based on projections. And today I wanted to focus on this news that came out from Jason Schreier about a 45% miss in revenue projections. So Bungie told employees that they were on track to miss revenue projections by 45%, and this resulted in everyone thinking they'd rally together and figure it out and whatever. And then a short while later, all these layoffs happened, catching all of Bungie completely off guard. I did some reporting yesterday and talked to sources, and the way this went down is very cold, very calculating, very abrupt, and that's not uncommon in corporate America. This is Bungie, who's supposed to be this tight-knit family, and everyone loves working at Bungie, and they have so much, communal support and all this stuff, but it's a disconnect between this, all these employees that love working together and then management and what happened here. So I wanted to talk about all this stuff feeding into this giant revenue miss and how so many factors combine to create something like that. That's a huge miss, enormous. I do think, first and foremost, we have to say that revenue estimates or revenue projections can be bad in and of themselves. It is a projection, meaning you have miscalculated how much revenue you are going to bring in the coming year. And that appears to be what happened here. I have heard that Bungie management gave Sony projections that were well above what they should have been for Lightfall, and then Lightfall was not good, and that made things even worse. And they were kind of numbers that Sony wanted to hear that the game was going to be successful in the coming year. So we had these higher than normal projections, or higher than logical projections at least. So that is part of the miss, is they just did not correctly, predict the amount of revenue they gain from Lightfall in the coming year. Lightfall kind of created this spiral of poor player retention. So even though the seasons have been perfectly fine, I don't think this is a bad year for seasons generally. It's just there was a large drop off after Lightfall, given the quality of Lightfall. And so that has led to lower revenue, with players being less engaged than they were before, and less engagement means less spending. But obviously, I think we know that Bungie's absurd monetization lately has definitely contributed to this. This feels like an era where Bungie has been almost desperate to get revenue, and the way they're doing that is by just multiplying microtransactions and monetization any way they can. And this didn't necessarily all start with Lightfall, but I think we can all see the evolution of how this has gone in all these different ways. As ever, a ton of stuff is being crafted for the microtransaction store every season, dramatically outside, the cosmetics and stuff we get from the season itself. But lately we've seen, things that's you would think would be logical for the game, and trying to onboard new players, like making Forsaken free, have not happened. Instead, they deleted half of Forsaken and are still selling some sort of Forsaken pack. They came up with this stupid idea that the Light and Darkness saga started with Shadowkeep, and so all those old expansions are still being sold, and instead of any of them becoming free over time. They have introduced some free stuff, like some of the reprised raids, and yet they started selling the Dungeon Pass, which has made almost no sense. It has convoluted things even further, because we have seasons where the dungeon is the best thing about the season, and it is directly tied into the story, but you have to pay separately for it, and you can't just buy one dungeon, you have to buy both dungeons, one for the season you're currently playing and one for a different season, be it in the past or in the future, which is absurd. And then in the store itself, we've seen shaders start to go by $10 paywalls, behind $10 paywalls for a season. We've seen collaboration skins that cost more, that often can't be purchased for Bright Dust. We've seen prices go up generally. We've seen season prices go up. It's just in every way possible. There's been more monetization for more money. Almost nothing has lowered in price or gone free. It has felt desperate, and like that is the sense I was getting before any of this happened. I was like, it feels like they're hard up for cash, and they are really, really trying to grind out more revenue. And sure enough, here we are. I think it's kind of backfired. I'm a big Destiny whale. For a long time now, I have bought pretty much every armor ornament every season because I love fashion. Yeah, it's expensive, it's stupid, whatever, but like I've been fully on board to at least buy that aspect of most seasons in addition to whatever I can squeeze out with Bright Dust. That stopped for me this year, essentially. I'm just over it, and I got tired of just how many things they were jamming in there with no relief, no changes. The only change they made was the whole, we're putting the Eververse sets in the ritual playlist this year because everyone was furious at them for breaking a promise that they were going to make a ritual set, and they never did. Now they made a ritual set with ridiculously low drop rates instead of putting it in Eververse, but, whatever. I guess that was something. And I'm sure I'm not alone in, over time, decreasing spending on Destiny. The longer this goes, the more disengaged you get. However, this was also just a very, very bad year to have a down year in Destiny. I believe that this would have happened anyway. After Lightfall, I think that alone was enough to make this a not great year for Destiny after a lot of player attrition there. But as we know, 2023 has been just a wild year for gaming, and it's been a tragic year for gaming with all the layoffs we've had. I think it's like 6,000 jobs or something now with this extra 100 from Bungie. But obviously the games that have been produced and that are coming out this year, it's one of the best years for gaming in 10, 20 years. I don't even know. It's crazy. There's, as we say, banger after banger coming out every month, every week. It's wild. We have 8, 6, 7, 8 games with a 90 plus on Metacritic, tons of games 85 plus. Many of these games are incredibly long. We have a live service like Diablo you can play instead as an alternative to Destiny if you want looting. It's actually really good in Season 2 now, even though it floundered for a bit. We have enormous games like Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3 that are 50, 100, 300 hours that you can put in. I don't know if I need to even list all the games here, but you know what's come out here. Tears, like Alan Wake now, Super Mario Wonder, Armored Core. It's an almost endless list. And with all these games to play, like Destiny sort of just gets set to the side is not a priority, and that's certainly what's happened with me. If none of these games were out, I would probably be playing Destiny more. But it's just an insane year. So in what would have already probably been a down year, it's compounded by the fact that this is like the worst time for this to happen because it was such a good year elsewhere for gaming, and there was so much competition just from every other game people want to play, and no one could even have gotten through all the games by now. Everyone has all these things in their backlog, myself included, and this is my job, and there's just not even time to play all these. So trying to keep up with Destiny at the same time has been, nigh impossible. But the problem now going forward is like I don't see how this gets any better. This feels like it's absolutely going to get worse. They need to revise their projections certainly to make sure they are not dramatically over predicting, how like the Final Shape is going to do. We learned that Final Shape pre-orders are a lot lower than they want, and guess what's not going to help that? This horrifically shit situation with the layoffs, and I've seen a number of people canceling their Lightfall or their Final Shape pre-orders as a result of this. We are about to have a 6-7 month season 23 after the delay that's about to happen, the 4-month delay of Final Shape. That is going to lead to a lot of player attrition, and that is another season essentially that is not being sold because I'm sure they'll refresh Eververse 3 months into the season, but it's unclear if they're going to come up with some sort of 30th anniversary type thing midway through because it seems like a really last minute delay. Bungie hasn't even announced the delay yet. It's just reporting, but it's happening. Like I've seen enough sourcing on that where like it's happening. And like, would people even want to buy a 30th anniversary thing at this point? Like everyone, maybe in 3 months later when everyone's like desperate for something, some people would, but it certainly doesn't feel like a celebration like the 30th anniversary thing would be. And so that's going to lead to player attrition, lower spending, a missed season to be sold at all, because at least a season costs $12 that a lot of people are going to pay for. That's gone if you suddenly have a 6-month season instead of a 3-month season. And after the final shape, I think everyone is very skeptical of this whole episodic idea. No one seems to know if the game is even going to continue in the traditional sense, if they're just going to do these episodes forever, or if there is still an annual expansion model planned. And I'm just seeing so many people being like, okay, once the final shape hits, like, I'm going to see this through, but like, I'm done. And again, without some sort of major refresh of the game, it does not seem like they will stem the bleeding, as it were, of the player base. I think the final shape will probably be very good. I think they've been working on it for a very long time. Keep in mind, it was already delayed once to put Lightfall in. Now it's delayed more. There's the reporting that's good, not great. I believe it will probably be a pretty good expansion by the end. I do not think it's going to be another Lightfall, knock on wood. But I do worry about what happens after that, because, I saw a comment from Bungie Sales, who's a really good analyst on Twitter, about how, as an outside perspective, he doesn't really play Destiny anymore, that he thinks that the move for Bungie is to pivot to Destiny 3 and like just make a full sequel, clean slate, like something to be a new onboarding system for players, something to maybe reinvigorate the player base. Although a lot of people would be mad if it, scrapped all your gear and stuff like Destiny 2 did from Destiny 1. But I just don't know if that's remotely realistic at this point, because it does not seem like what Bungie has planned for at all. They have previously said it is very clear that Destiny 2 will begin some sort of new saga after this, in no matter, what form it takes. But it doesn't seem likely that a Destiny 3 is planned anytime remotely soon. And if it was, it feels like it would just be them continuing on using Destiny, like maybe mildly upgraded Destiny 2 tech, and then just calling it Destiny 3 as a sort of rebrand as we move into a new saga or something, but it not really being a huge leap from Destiny 2 to Destiny 3 the way you would expect from a real sequel. I'm very much thinking of Overwatch to Overwatch 2, which has been, that was like a joke of a sequel upgrade. It was a giant patch, essentially. And that is not what I would want to see out of Destiny. I do not think that would achieve what they want to achieve. I don't know the answer to this, revenue question, because they were over-projecting in the first place to the point where, like, there was probably no way they were going to meet those numbers unless Lightfall was, like, the greatest thing of all time and everyone was super hyped after that. I guess maybe that could have happened, but they should have known, what the reception to some extent to Lightfall would be. I think they recognized that launched with a lot of issues and had some, probably problems in development having to be jammed in there before the final shape. In terms of player spending and, how is that not going to get worse? Everyone is so pissed now after the way this went down, after all this bad news about how the game's doing. Everyone is very demotivated to play. Everyone's going to be doing alternatives. Not everyone, but a lot of people are going to be playing alternative games now. The extended season will lead to less spending, less player retention, and they're really just banking on everyone is going to come surging back for the final shape. But with pre-orders low, don't see the rate of that increasing after this, and they are actively losing pre-orders now as a result of this. Everyone is very mad at Bungie management for all this, but it's this really weird situation where, like, we're gonna get caught in the spiral where even if we like Bungie employees and we think they're working really hard and they're trying to do their best, it's like you can't just, if you're not engaged with the game, if you're not interested, if you're upset with management, like, you can't just play the game to be nice, or like play the game if you don't want to play the game. Like, it is on Bungie as a whole to create something that is engaging enough, interesting enough, attractive enough, affordable enough, where players want to come back and play. And we've seen other games do this time and time again. We've seen, dramatic changes in direction, in quality. We've seen, scaling back of monetization that people hate in order to, attract more players more generally. Destiny has had a terrible new player onboarding system forever. And people are pointing to looking up all the expansions, all the DLC on Steam, and how is any player supposed to get into Destiny now with the way things have been set up with the original content that got deleted? It is a game I cannot recommend, essentially, not because the game itself is not fun, but because I don't even know where to tell people to start, whether it's Shadowkeep or the current expansion or whatever. It's such a mess. I don't even know how I recommend the game in order to get people to, quote, the fun part. And it is still fun. I still enjoy coming back to Destiny and playing the seasonal content, at least weekly. But as a whole, it's been a very bad year even before this in terms of kind of enthusiasm and interest, in part based on all the alternatives. But just after Lightfall, it was a pretty significant drop-off point for, I think, most people, myself included. I was not expecting to be that disappointed by that. And I think all these problems were in place before this, but they have been really amplified over the course of the past year, and Lightfall was kind of an accelerant into making existing problems even worse. I don't know the answer here. It feels like things are going to get much worse. And I would say much worse before they get better, but I don't even know if they will get better at this point. For me personally, obviously, there's no reason I'm just going to stop playing entirely. I will play the new season. I want to check it out. Obviously, I've invested so much of my life into this game. I'm going to play the final shape. I'm going to see how it ends. I will likely continue playing the game, covering the game until it doesn't exist anymore. But I never really thought there was a possibility that it would not exist anymore until pretty much now. And with how unhealthy things seem to be, I do wonder what the future holds, especially once Marathon and all these other games come out, and if Destiny is just going to exist on sort of life support, like we saw in the later years of The Division or Anthem or Avengers, where some new stuff was being made, but it was just sort of on autopilot, and we won't see the kind of investment they've done recently. And I think they have done significant investment, at least on the PvE side. They are producing way more content than they ever have been on that side of things. But with all these layoffs, with decreased morale, can they keep that up? And it's not even helping. This is even with some good seasons this year, it's still not helping. So I'm a little doom and gloom here, but I don't really see the answer to this right now. And granted, we're in the darkest period right now, and we don't know what next season's launch will be like, what the final shape will look like, but it is hard to see things getting any better after this, and I do feel like they are going to get significantly worse. So that sucks. We will see what other information comes out today or tomorrow or the rest of the week. There seems like there's plenty more potentially that we could learn. We have yet to hear anything significant from Bungie itself about this. We got the really generic Pete Parsons, "I'm sad about this" tweets, and that is really the only official communication from Bungie. I was sent a list of things that the fired people will get, of their 3-month severance, 3 months health insurance, some sort of bonus that they're still going to get for the end of the year or whatever, when they normally get bonuses. But that's really the only official word I've gotten about any of this, and everything else is between me and IGN and Bloomberg. And we're talking to all these people that are in and out of the company, who know all of these details, and that's why all this is coming to light. You don't fire 100 people in the worst way possible and expect them not to be very angry about it and explain what's going on to the public and the press. And I don't blame a lot of them for being mad. Not everyone can write a very nice letter about things like Michael Salvatore. I very much understand why everyone is so mad about this. And it's not just the fired people who are mad, it's the people who are left behind who are furious as to how this played out, and to lose their friends like that, and to feel like their jobs are not remotely secure now. It's a bad situation. So I will keep reporting on this, and I don't know. I hope the bad news stops, but we're going to need to hear from Bungie directly about this. I do not know what format that will take. It is probably going to be pretty corporate generic stuff. We're sad for our losses. We're determined to do things better in the future, blah, blah, blah. But it's corporate bullshit they essentially have to say. So I'm not really holding out much hope for that. Anyway, I will keep following this, and I'll try and see what happens next together. But thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.